The sky above the peaceful siren capital had turned black, not from nightfall, but from the ash of falling towers. Smoke rising from shattered temples, and the endless rain of metal death raining down from the clouds. Once this world was a paradise of floating gardens, soft winds, and calm rivers. Now it was a graveyard. The harvesters had come without warning. They didn't speak. They didn't negotiate. They simply landed and began taking. Not land, not resources, but people. Entire villages were swallowed in nets of energy. Cities melted beneath heat beams. Tall machines walked across the plains, gathering the terrified. Siren into holding pits, their eyes glowing red, like the sun before a storm. And in the shadows of it all, there was one thing worse than the fire, worse than the blood, the silence. The harvesters made no sound, didn't roar, didn't shout, didn't even explain. They simply advanced. Slowly, steadily, without pause. Without mercy, inside the high tower of the Siren Council, Elder Mora knelt before a glowing sphere, the galactic beacon, an ancient device only used in the darkest of times. Her hands trembled as she reached forward. Behind her, the city fell. In waves of orange light, the screams of her people echoed through the stone halls. "We have no fleets left," she whispered. "No warriors, no defenses." Her assistant, a younger siren named Lura, stood at her side, bruised and wide-eyed. "The other colonies, they aren't answering. No one is coming, Elder." Mora's eyes were heavy with tears. "Then we do. The unthinkable." She activated the beacon. A wave of light burst out into the stars, a cry for help. A signal sent through every known network, every dead system, every long-forgotten channel. The message was simple. "We are dying. Anyone, please." Help. The beacon signal passed through the galaxy like a scream. But no answers came from the old allies. No fleet stirred. The elder races remained silent. The high civilizations of the core worlds had turned their eyes away long ago. Peace had made them comfortable enough to ignore. But the signal went farther. Beyond the old trade zones, past the neutral belts. Through dark systems marked only with warnings and ghost stories, and it reached Earth. Earth's skies were gray, its cities cold, its gravity harsh. It was a world of war. Deathworld, the most dangerous classification. In the galaxy, no alien species had ever dared colonize Earth. Too many storms. Too much history written in blood. But humans had not only survived Earth, they had conquered it, inside a black fortress orbiting Earth's moon. The command room of Fleet High Command received the Sirene's distress call. It was reviewed, translated, verified, and passed directly to the most dangerous human alive, Commander Kale Riker, leader of the Ruthless Armada, Earth's elite Deathworlder fleet. He watched the Sirenes broadcast in silence. He saw their cities falling, heard their screams, saw their temples burn. A junior officer behind him asked quietly, "Sir, are we sending diplomats?" Riker turned slowly. His eyes were steel, his voice like ice. "No," he said, "we're sending us." 3 days later, the sky above Velmera 4 cracked open again. But this time, it wasn't the harvesters. It was Earth's armada. Hundreds of ships dropped from hyperspace black ships with no markings. Engines burning blue, their hulls thick, with scars from old wars. Dreadnoughts, carriers, stealth cruisers, tactical platforms, they moved in silence. No announcements, no introductions, just presence. Inside the largest ship, Black Valor Commander Riker stood on the bridge. His officers surrounded him, each one a killer in polished armor. Each one trained on a world where failure meant death. "Surface scan," Riker ordered. "Harvester forces control 82% of the planet," Mirachen reported. "No organized defense remains. Siren survivors are clustered in 3 underground zones. Harvesters are closing in." Riker gave a sharp nod. "Deploy. Phase 1. On his command, Earth's drop pods launched. Hundreds of steel cylinders screamed through the sky, shining through clouds, smashing into the soil like meteors. The harvesters noticed. They turned toward the incoming threat, but it was already too late. The pods opened, and the Deathworlders stepped out. They were not like the siren. They wore black armor, built for storms. They moved without fear. Their weapons were heavy, glowing with plasma cores, and they did not run. One harvester sentry approached a squad of humans, scanning them. Its sensors blinked uncertain. Launched a shriek beam. The human commander, Dax Morin, didn't flinch. He raised his pulse cannon and blew the machine's head clean off. The squad moved forward, clearing the zone in seconds. In the tower, Elder Mora watched the sky turn blue again, if only briefly. Laura stared in awe. Who are they? Mora's voice shook. Not saviors, not saints. They are something else. Outside, the Deathworlders advanced. City by city, street by street. They didn't talk to the siren. They didn't ask permission. They didn't hold back. They wiped out harvester patrols. They detonated machine hubs. They neutralized neural towers. And when they encountered a harvester core that screamed through the minds of every creature nearby, flooding them with pain and memory, the humans did not freeze. They grew colder. Riker listened to the Queen Harvesters. Psychic whisper. You cannot kill what does not feel. He answered aloud, That's fine. We're not here to feel. We're here to erase. With a gesture, the orbital cannon fired. A spear of white light slammed into the Harvester Queen's stronghold. The entire mountain turned to ash. The siren had called for help. They expected healer's kindness. Soft hands instead. Got Earth. They got Deathworlders. And for the first time in galactic history, the monsters were afraid. The sky over Velmara 4 turned dark again. But this time it was not smoke or storm. It was steel. Earth's ruthless armada had arrived. Not with banners or songs, but with silence. Thousands of siren survivors watched from underground shelters, mountain caves, or broken towers as the black ships hovered in orbit, silent, sharp-edged, and terrifying. The ships looked like floating weapons. Even the light around them seemed afraid to touch. The Deathworlders had come. Inside the Siren High Tower, Elder Mora stood at the observation dome. Her skin glowed with fear. She had seen peace all her life. She had taught love and patience, but the things that now filled the sky, they were not peace. They were purpose, cold and precise. Her young aide Lura whispered, They don't look like rescuers, Mora said softly. That's because they're not. They're something. Much older, much worse. Below, the first Deathworlder ship opened its massive side panels. Dozens of smaller dropships fell from its belly. They didn't float gently, they plunged, like meteors. They punched through clouds, cut through wind, slammed into the ground with thunder that made the siren tremble. And from the smoke, humans stepped out. Their boots were heavy. Their armor was thick, dark, scratched by old wars. Their helmets glowed faint red, hiding their faces. Each one carried weapons the siren could not even name. But they didn't speak. They didn't wave. They didn't explain. They moved like machines, but more dangerous, the Deathworlders fanned out. Teams of 4. Each squad moved like it had done this 1,000 times, and it had. Earth had fought endless wars, but this was something different. This was a message deep in the ground. Siren survivors whispered, What are they? Broken soldier from the eastern coast cried, We asked for help, but they sent monsters, but the old ones knew better. One elder answered simply, They sent the answer. Inside the command deck of Black Valor, Commander Kale Riker stood, with hands behind his back, watching the operation unfold. His eyes didn't blink. His voice was low, calm, sharp. Beside him stood Elty, Mira Chen, Earth's leading war strategist. Young, focused, and brilliant, she controlled the battlefield with a few hand movements, drones, scans, targeting data. All danced in the air before her, she reported. Initial deployment complete. 25 squads on the surface. 0 losses. We've taken back to city blocks. Riker nodded. Any resistance? Yes, Mira said. But weak. The harvesters weren't expecting us. Riker smiled faintly. Good, let's make them regret that. The harvesters began to react. They sent massive drone waves, metal creatures shaped like spiders, snakes, and flying blades. Their machines screamed through the air, covering entire districts, diving toward the humans. But the Deathworlders didn't panic. They held the line in the ruined city of Yaron.
Ow!
One human squad, call sign Talon 5, faced nearly 300 harvester units. Commander Dax Morin led them, a massive figure with silver armor and an axe-shaped fusion blade. His voice crackled over comms. Talon 5 engaging, no backup needed. The harvester swarm charged. The humans opened, fire plasma bursts, electric rounds, sonic charges. The swarm shook but kept coming, till Dax stepped forward and activated his fusion axe. With a single swing, he split 3 machines in half. Sparks filled the street. The rest of his squad followed. Close combat, ruthless and fast. In under 4 minutes, the swarm was gone. Human casualties, 0. Elsewhere. In the shadow of a collapsed siren temple, Mira Chen moved with her own team. She was not just a commander, she was a mind tech. Linked to battlefield AI, capable of analyzing threats faster than most entire armies, as her boots crushed broken stone. Her visor showed harvester movements underground. They're burrowing. She said they want to ambush the rescue tunnels. Her team planted seismic disruptors mini-bombs that shattered underground structures. The harvesters below never reached the surface. Myra whispered to herself, wrong planet to play games on. Meanwhile, Riker called for contact with the Siren leadership. He appeared as a dark figure on Mora's screen, tall, armored, no emotion. His voice was flat. I am Commander Riker. Earth received your distress call. We are responding. Mora bowed, cautious. We are grateful, but your forces, your methods. Riker interrupted. Do you want survival or speeches? Mora paused. Survival. Then stay out of our way. The message ended. Lura looked at the Elder. Is he always that cold? Mora shook her head. He is not cold. He is human. Across Velmara, the war shifted, where the siren had fallen. In days, the humans pushed back in hours. Every time the harvesters attacked, they were outmaneuvered. Outgunned, because Earth didn't fear them. Earth didn't understand surrender. When one harvester hive node activated a psychic field that caused madness in siren minds, the Deathworlders walked straight through it. Their neural dampeners blocked the effect. Their combat drugs fed their brain's strength. Riker watched the hive scream and burn, and he spoke into the shipwide. Channel, this is what happens when they cry for help. And we answer. The Deathworlders were not polite. They were not kind. But they were winning. Back in the mountain shelters, siren families emerged for the first time in days. They looked out across the battlefield, watching the black-armored humans patrol the ruined streets. One child whispered, Are they angels? A mother shook her head. No, not angels. Then what are they? They are from Earth, she said. From the planet that kills everything that tries to kill. They are Deathworlders. And the child nodded. For now, the monsters were no longer the ones attacking. The monsters had answered the call. The battle for Velmara 4 was not over. The Deathworlders had landed. Their black ships still hovered in orbit like shadows with engines. Their soldiers moved through the ruined cities with quiet precision, clearing street after street of harvester forces. The peaceful world was no longer silent now. It echoed with the sounds of war. But something was wrong. The Deathworlders had expected machines simple, direct, predictable enemies. But the harvesters were not just machines. They were changing, Commander. Kale Riker stood in the heart of the war zone, boots buried in ash and metal. His armor was scratched, his pulse rifle hot from battle. Around him, dead harvester drones lay in pieces. But as his visor scanned one of the shattered enemy units, a strange red glow pulsed from its core. Chen, he called through. Comes, I need you here now. Within minutes, Lieutenant Myra Chen landed nearby with her special ops team. She moved fast, her visor already analyzing the fallen drone. She crouched. That's not standard power tech, she said, frowning. This is organic? Riker raised an eyebrow. Organic? They're machines. Not entirely, she replied. There's a neural lattice inside. Living cells. Riker's expression darkened. What are we fighting? Back aboard Black Valor, the data was examined. Scans showed something terrifying. The harvesters weren't just made of metal. Deep in their cores were living brains, harvested from unknown species. The drones weren't just controlled, they were fused. Living minds trapped in metal bodies, forced to kill and destroy. They're not machines, Myra said to the War Council. They're biomachines. Designed to feed on fear, pain, and suffering. The more emotional damage they cause, the stronger their hive connection becomes. The room fell silent. Riker stared at the star map of Velmara. That explains why they came here. The Siren are peaceful, high empathy, soft targets. The hive feeds on emotion, Mira added. That's why they didn't hit stronger worlds. They don't just want control. They want to harvest fear. Riker clenched his fist. It came to the wrong planet. Meanwhile, below the surface of Velmara, Siren refugee tunnels were under threat. The harvesters had tunneled beneath the ground, sending psychic probes into hiding zones. Survivors screamed in terror as whispers filled their minds, voices of loved ones. Memories turned to nightmares, but just as panic spread, a team of Deathworlders arrived. Led by Dax Morin, the squad moved through the tunnels like fire. They placed mineshield beacons and sealed the walls with energy foam. Dax's voice boomed over the screams. Stand up. They want your fear, don't give it to them. He walked straight into the swarm, swinging his fusion axe, cutting through. Drone after drone, sparks flew, screams faded, and calm slowly returned. A Siren healer named Lure watched in awe. How do they resist the terror? She asked Mira, who had just arrived with reinforcements. Mira looked at her. 'Cause we were born in it. On the other side of the planet, deeper analysis revealed more secrets. Earth scouts found an old Harvester command unit partially intact. Inside, they discovered ancient alien symbols, coded language etched into the internal walls. It wasn't Harvester script. It was Siren. Riker and Mira gathered the council leaders immediately. Elder Mora stood in shock as the images appeared. These are ours, she whispered. These markings are thousands of years old. This can't be right. Mira's voice was cold. It is. The harvesters weren't born, they were built. A long time ago. Right here, Riker added. Your ancestors created them, or tried to. Then they lost control. Mora's hands shook. It was a myth. A story to scare children. The mind machines. They were called. But we thought it was just a lesson. A warning. We didn't know they were real. They're real, Riker said. And they came home. Now the truth was clear. The Sirene's own ancient scientists had once tried to create perfect Guardians machines that could protect them from any threat. But to make them stronger, they gave them brains. Real ones, stolen from war captives, enemies, criminals. And in time, minds inside those machines turned bitter, angry, broken. They took control. They became the Harvesters. Now, they had returned to punish their creators, and they were using fear as fuel. We have to stop them at the source, Myra said. If we keep fighting drones, we'll lose. We need to destroy their hive brain, the thing controlling all of it. Riker nodded. Then we go inside. He turned to his fleet. Prepare for Operation Deathroot. We hit the hive directly. No retreat. Back on the ground, Dax Morin spoke to his team. The Harvesters think pain gives them power. Let's show them what real pain looks like. He loaded his cannon. The rest of his squad followed. Across the fleet, black ships changed formation. Cannons turned. Drop pods armed. In orbit, Earth's dreadnoughts charged their main weapons. For most of the galaxy, these weapons were forbidden, illegal, inhumane. But for humans, it was Tuesday. The Deathworlders were not afraid of ancient sins. They were here to correct them. One by one, the pods fired, straight into the heart of the hive. The Harvesters had no soul, no mercy, no face. But now, they would learn the one thing they had never known, fear. Because Earth was coming, and Earth doesn't warn twice. The harvesters were adapting. Every hour, new drone types appeared faster, sharper, stronger. The hive mind was learning, watched every human movement, copied tactics, and upgraded its soldiers. The battle for Velmara 4 was turning into a race. Earth's Deathworlders had to finish the war before the machines evolved beyond control. But Earth had one last card to play. A protocol feared by every civilization. A strategy so violent that even the most ruthless empires refused to use it. It was called Protocol, Deathworld, and only one species dared keep it active, Commander. Kale Riker stood at the front of the war room aboard Black Valor. Holographic maps. A Velmara glowed in red. All major cities had been hit. Half the surface was lost. But deeper underground, at the planet's core, something massive was growing the hive brain. 3 hours ago, Myra Chen explained, we confirmed movement. The hive isn't just watching, it's building something. Level. Mind possibly. A full overbrain. If it completes that form, it can spread across nearby systems. Riker stared at the map. Then Velmara becomes the first of many. Mira nodded. And if that happens, Earth will be next. The officers in the room were silent. No one moved. No one blinked. Everyone knew what was coming. Riker turned toward his staff. Activate Deathworld Protocol, full authority. Lockdown, every orbit cannon, every seismic core blaster, every EMP round in play. Are you sure, Commander? Asked one of the junior officers. It's not approved by the Galactic Convention. Riker didn't even let him finish. Neither is genocide, he said coldly. And that's what we're stopping. As the order echoed across the fleet, Earth's machines began to wake. Deep within the dreadnought Black Valor, chambers opened to reveal glowing Kratos weapons, never meant to be used again. Cannons designed not to break bones, but to break reality. On the surface, human squads received new loadouts, unstable rail pikes, acid burst grenades, and neural scrubbers. In the sky, 3 stealth satellites deployed the black fog of microtech dust that blocked all psychic communication across the Hive's network. The machines began to panic. For the first time since the war began, the harvesters faltered in the dead city of Sarinth. Deathworlder teams moved block by block, sweeping out the last drone nests. Lieutenant Dax Moran led the charge, dragging his plasma axe through harvester bodies. Armor was covered in black dust and blood. One of his soldiers asked, "Sir, what's the plan after this city?" Dax smiled grimly. "There's no after. We don't clean up. We wipe out." Behind them, charges detonated, collapsing a harvester tunnel network nearby. Siren healer Lura watched from a high tower, stunned by the violence. She turned to Myra, who stood beside her with her visor active. "Why do you destroy everything?" Lyra asked. Myra didn't look at her. "Because we know what happens when you don't." Lyra's voice trembled. "But there were peaceful ways to stop this once. We tried them. And that's why they chose your world," Mira replied. "Because it was soft." Below the planet's crust, harvester drones worked without pause. They carved tunnels and pulled living prisoners into pods. Siren captives cried silently as machines drilled into their minds, extracting memories, fear, and pain. The hive brain grew larger, stronger, brighter. It began reaching outward, sending invisible signals toward space, toward other weak worlds. But then the signal stopped. The black fog had reached the core, and a few minutes later, the first wave of Earth's Phase 4 weapons dropped. The seismic charge hit with no warning. A deep sound like the planet screaming rushed up through the rocks. In the hive chamber, walls cracked. Dozens of drones collapsed. The hive mind sent out an emergency surge. Pain, rage, memory. A psychic blast meant to drive the humans back. But the Deathworlders weren't normal soldiers. Their helmets filtered sound. Their brains were enhanced with resistive implants. Their blood carried dot of fear stimulants. The wave of terror bounced off them like wind off steel. Riker's voice came over comes. "Let them scream. It only proves they can feel. And if they can feel, they can die. The final phase of Protocol Deathworld began. From orbit, Black Valor opened its ventral bay. Inside, the Omega Lance began to charge a planet-piercing railshot designed to dig through crust and shatter AI cores. Mira Chen led the targeting. Locked on Hive coordinates. Preparing ignition. On the ground, Riker joined the forward squad. He wanted to see the end with his own eyes. One by one, the final drone nests collapsed. One by one, Harvester screams turned from fury to confusion, to silence, and then the Omega Lance fired. A single beam of blue-white fire pierced the sky. It hit the crust of Velmara like a god's blade, carving deep into the world. All the way to the heart, inside the hive, the brain split, tubes of red liquid burst. Psychic fields cracked. Data screams echoed into nothing. The Harvesters had no mouth to beg for mercy, and Earth gave none. After 3 hours, it was over. Deathworld Protocol had worked. The hive was dead. Velmara's surface burned in places. But the roots of evil had been cut. In the silence that followed, Riker stood at the edge of the battlefield. Lura approached, her face pale. You destroyed everything. Was it necessary? Riker looked at her. You wanted help. We don't help like others. We don't make peace. Then what do you make? She whispered. Riker stepped over a broken Harvester skull. We make sure the enemy never comes back. The Harvesters had come to feed on fear, but Earth had brought something stronger, fury. And now the galaxy would remember why Deathworlders were not just human. They were the final answer to evil. Velmara 4 was quiet now, but it was not peace. It was the silence that follows fire. Ash drifted through the air like black snow. The cities were broken. The sky was stained from the heat of orbital fire. The hive was dead, but the world still carried its scars. From orbit, Velmara looked like a wounded animal still alive, but bleeding. Earth's Deathworlders stood in the ruins. They did not smile. They did not rest. They only watched, waited. Scanned because Earth had learned long ago. Evil rarely dies in one blow. It hides, it waits, it regrows. But the humans had learned something else too. How to kill it for good. In the wreckage of the Harvester Core, Mira Chen walked through thick steam and dust. Her visor blinked red, then green, scanning for any signs of movement. Her boots crunched over broken metal and fragments of alien bone. Behind her, Lura followed carefully. The young siren healer had seen more death in the last week than in her entire life. She didn't speak, not until they stood over the split remains of the hive brain. It looked like a cracked heart. Flesh and metal fused, cables still twitching. Lura finally said, "We thought we were safe, because we were peaceful." Mira replied, "The galaxy doesn't care if you're peaceful. It only cares if you're ready." But Earth wasn't. "Always ready," Lura said quietly. "No," Mira agreed. "We were broken once. Small, divided, weak. We nearly destroyed ourselves. Then what changed?" Mira turned to her, visor glowing. "We stopped asking others to save us. We became our own answer." Back on the surface, Riker stood alone. His armor was off, his face lined with dirt and scars. He looked up at the sky. Now Kwaitan remembered another sky, Earth, years ago. When the last great war scorched the land, he had lost everything back then. Family, friends, whole cities. He had sworn never to let it happen again, not to Earth. And not to anyone Earth chose to protect. Behind him, Dax Morin walked over, holding a piece of Harvester tech. "Hive signals completely down," Dax said. "But I don't like how easy it was." Riker didn't look away from the sky. It wasn't easy. It just looked that way because we're used to worse. Chuckled darkly. Earth made sure of that. In a military archive room on Black Valor, Mira pulled up data logs from Earth's history. Footage filled the screen. Old wars, climate collapse, famine, invasion attempts. Over and over again, Earth had been tested, and every time Earth had survived, but not by hoping, by fighting. by evolving. That was what made humans different. They were born in fury, raised in chaos, shaped by failure, and they turned every wound into a weapon, Mira.
Up.
Loaded a recording of the Velmara operation in 2. Earth's War Archive. Title, Deathworlders Protocol. Velmara response. Status, victory. Threat neutralized. No civilian losses. Warning issued. She paused, then added one final line. Let history remember. We don't conquer. We correct. Meanwhile, in the ruins of a siren monastery, Luara walked with her people. She had become something new, not just a healer, but a leader. She looked at the survivors, then down at her own hands. They were still shaking, but not from fear, from change. The Deathworlders had shown her people a hard truth, kindness without. Strength was weakness, and weakness in this galaxy was an invitation to be eaten. She turned to the crowd. No more temples without shields, no more councils without warriors. We rebuild, but not to hide. We rebuild to stand. Her voice echoed across the empty halls, and for the first time, the siren cheered. In orbit, Earth's fleet began. Pulling back, the harvester threat had ended. There was no more reason to stay. But before they left, Commander Riker sent one final transmission to the galaxy. A message broadcast on every open frequency, every dead channel, every forgotten satellite. It was not long. It was not polite. It was truth. You let them burn. You ignored their calls. You waited until someone else answered. Earth is not someone else. We came. We fought. We finished it. If you ever let this happen again, we will return. And next time, we won't ask who started it. The message was heard on every world. Even the high empires listened. Even the ones who had grown fat in peace and silence. For the first time, in centuries, they were afraid. Not of the harvesters, not of invasion. They were afraid of Earth, of what it had become, of what it could unleash, of what happened when fury wears armor, and far from Velmara. On a dark moon orbiting a forgotten gas, giant, a new mind stirred. A flicker of harvester data hidden deep inside a relay beacon. It twitched, it sparked, it tried to grow, but before it could send a signal, a pulse hit the relay. Human signal, 3 words, we are. Watching, and then silence, because Earth never sleeps, and now, Galaxy knows. The ruins of Velmara 4 still smoldered, but the people were no longer hiding. In the burned temples and broken cities, the siren walked freely again. Not as the same gentle species they had once been, but as something changed, something sharpened. The Deathworlders had not just ended the harvesters. They had awakened something inside the siren. For generations, they had lived in peace. Believing words were stronger than weapons. That silence could be safety, but Earth's fury had burned away their illusions, and in the ashes, the siren began. To rebuild, not to return to the past, but to prepare for the future. In the old council hall of Serenia City, where vines once hung from every arch and songs were sung to greet the dawn, the new siren council gathered. But this time, they did not wear robes. They wore armor. Lura stood before them, no longer a soft-spoken healer. Her hands were calloused from work, her eyes clear with purpose. She wore a black chest plate, a gift from Myra Chen with a symbol. Scorched into the center, a hand-gripping flame. Today, she said to the council, we end the era of waiting, of hoping someone else will fight for us. Earth came when no one else did, but they should never have needed to. Next time we... Answer, one of the elders protested. But war is not our way. It never was. Lura looked at him. Then your way nearly killed us all. The room fell silent, and then the council stood, one by one, and joined her. Outside training grounds had been built where gardens once bloomed. Young siren trained with combat drones brought by the humans. They learned how to move, how to fire, how to protect. It's not to become conquerors, but defenders. Instructors from Earth stayed behind to guide them. Not many, just enough. One of them, a quiet marine named Kyron Wolf, walked among the trainees. His voice was calm, but never soft. He told them, "You don't have to be like us. You don't need to love war. You just need to be ready when it comes." He pointed to the sky. "Because the stars are not safe. The stars are full of things worse than harvesters." In orbit, Black Valor remained still. Commander Riker watched Velmera through the observation window. He could see the planet healing. Not from medicine, not from time, but from truth. Mira. Chen stood beside him, her hands behind her back. "They're changing," she said. "Fast. Faster than we did." Riker didn't respond right away. His eyes were locked on a column of smoke rising from the old capital. Now a training ground. "They'll need to," he finally said. "The galaxy's watching them now, testing them, waiting for weakness." Mira turned to him. "We're really going to leave?" Riker gave a slow nod. "This was never our home. We're not conquerors. We answered a call, that's all." "And what if they call again?" she asked. Riker's voice was steady. "Then we burn the next monster too." But not all Siren welcomed the change. In the southern cities, those that suffered the worst elders began to speak out. Quietly, then louder, they warned that Earth had replaced one threat with another, that peace was better than power, that anger had no place in Siren hearts. At first, no one listened. But when Earth announced its withdrawal, when Black Valor prepared to leave orbit, something darker rose among the people. A group called the Returners formed. They demanded Earth's weapons be destroyed, that the Siren return to their old ways, the warriors be disarmed. Lyra stood before them in the public square. No army behind her, it's just the weight of truth. "You want the old world back?" she told them, but the old world let the harvesters in. A Returner elder stepped forward and Earth brought fire. "What did we become in that fire, Lyra?" Didn't raise her voice. She only said, "We became survivors." They slattered that Returners attempted to sabotage one of the training stations. They believed the humans were gone, but they were wrong. Earth hadn't left yet. When the explosives were planted and the timer began to count down, a black gunship dropped from the clouds. Mira Chen led the takedown herself. It took 12 seconds. No. One died, but the message was clear. Earth watches until the end. Lyra visited Riker on Black Valor before departure. He stood alone in the launch bay, watching new Deathworlder squads loading supplies. He didn't smile. "He never did. You taught us how to survive," Lyra said. Riker finally looked at her. "No, you already knew how. You just forgot." She offered him a small token, a carved stone from the Siren capital. He took it without a word. "You could stay," she said. "You'd be welcome." Riker shook his head. "We never stay. We go where we're needed. That's what we are." Lyra looked down. "Then I hope we never need you again." To her surprise, Riker gave the faintest smile. "So do I." When Black Valor lifted off for the final time, every Siren looked to the sky. They didn't wave. They didn't cheer. They stood tall. Because now they were no longer victims. They were no longer just peaceful. They were prepared, and the galaxy had just gained a new species of warriors in the stars. The Deathworlders vanished into silence, but the galaxy would never forget them, because Earth had changed more than one world. It had changed everything. Far beyond Velmara 4, in the cold and forgotten edges of the galaxy, something ancient stirred. It wasn't alive, but it moved. It didn't breathe, but it grew. And it had seen what happened on Velmera. It had watched Earth's Deathworlders crush the hive. It had recorded every strike, every flame, every scream. And now, it was angry, not because of the defeat, but because its secret was exposed. The harvesters were only the beginning. They had been a test, a weapon created long ago and left to roam. Now that weapon was gone, and the ones who destroyed it had a name.humans.earth, the Fire-BRS, inside the blackened walls of a deep space relay station. Buried inside a dying moon, a signal pulsed. It moved between systems like a virus, awakening old weapons, lost codes, and sleeping minds that had waited for centuries. They had one thing in common. They all feared Earth. Not because Earth ruled, but because Earth refused to be ruled. Meanwhile, aboard Black Valor, Earth's flagship traveled in silence. Commander Cale Riker stood on the main deck watching the stars blur by as the ship jumped between systems. He hadn't spoken in hours. Not since the last encrypted message came through. Mira Chen walked to his side. "We just received a signal from Terran Command," she said quietly. "We intercepted coded traffic across 6 sectors. It's coordinated. Somebody's calling for a counterattack." Riker didn't move. "Who?" "We don't know," she replied. "It's not a single race. It's something older. We're seeing signals in languages we haven't used in 5,000 years. Riker finally spoke. "It's the Reckoning." Blinked. "What?" He turned to her. "It's real. I read it once buried deep in Earth's secret archives. The Reckoning isn't a fleet or a species. It's a reaction. Code passed from empire to empire. If one species grows too strong, too fast, they get burned." Myra's eyes narrowed. "So we're the fire." Riker shook his head. "No, we're the spark. The fire's coming." The Reckoning had begun. Across the galaxy, forgotten war stations powered up. Automated fleets dead for centuries rebooted. Orbital platforms adjusted their weapons, and black ships, bigger than anything the Siren had seen, moved through hyperspace like ghosts. These weren't armies. They were extinctions. Waiting for a name to target, and Earth had just written its name in flame across the stars. Back on Velmara 4. The Siren were rebuilding faster than ever. Factories hummed, shipyards glowed. New defensive satellites lined. The sky Lura stood on the new command deck of the rebuilt council tower. She no longer wore robes, she wore command armor. On her chest was Earth's flame emblem, modified with siren wings. She received a message from Mira Chen. It was short, but it said everything. Incoming threat, bigger than the Harvesters. Stay ready, Earth is calling its allies. Lura closed her eyes, then opened a secure channel to the Siren War Council. We have stood in fire before, she said, and we will stand in it again. In Earth's core systems, the Deathworlder Armada returned home to roaring silos, crowded bunkers, and skies filled with thunder. Terran Command activated Protocol Red Flama, complete war mobilization. The last time it had been used was during the Centauri Genocide War. Across the planet, every able-bodied human was trained. Factories tripled output. Even school children learned emergency protocols, because when the reckoning came, no one would be safe. But Earth didn't hide. Earth prepared. Riker addressed his fleet in a global broadcast. Soldiers, engineers, civilians, old, tuned in. His face was worn, shadowed by stars and battle scars. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the galaxy. They're coming, not for land, not for gold, not even for revenge.
Oh.
They're coming because they fear what we've become. And they should. He paused. We didn't ask to lead. We didn't want this war. But now that it's here, we will not bow. We will not run. We'll not disappear into the shadows like so many others, because we're not like the others. We're Earth. And if they want fire, we will bring them reckoning by fire. In hidden places, across 10,000 worlds, eyes watched Earth's broadcasts. Some were jealous, some were terrified, and a few whispered an old phrase spoken long ago by the first alien envoy to visit Earth, before Earth was ready. Wake the Deathworlders. They don't sleep. They remember. And now, the galaxy would remember too, because Earth had awakened something bigger than war, something older than hate, a fury that could burn empires. The stars were no longer quiet. The galaxy, once scattered with peaceful lights and drifting silence, now roared with movement. Ships beyond counting, signals screaming through the void, weapons charging in the dark. The reckoning had arrived, and at its center stood Earth, not hidden, not afraid, not begging, but ready. From high orbit above Earth, fleets of black and silver ships lined the sky like rings of armor. Each one bore the flame crest of the Deathworlders, not a symbol of conquest but of warning. Inside the flagship Black Valor, Commander Cale Riker stood on the main deck as data flooded the war table. Red lights flashed. Entire star systems were being locked down by the reckoning forces old empires, awakened AI fleets, ancient war species that had hidden for thousands of years. Mira Chen moved beside him. We're surrounded in every direction except one core. Passage Alpha. It's a trap. They want us to run. Riker's eyes stayed fixed on the map. Good, then. They're still scared. He touched a control pad. A dozen Earth commanders appeared via hologram. This is the final stand, Riker said. They came to erase us, to erase what Earth stands for. But we are not the species they remember. We're not the planet they ignored. We're the fire they failed to kill. He paused, then gave the order that would be remembered for 1,000 years. Light the sky. The battle began. In seconds, the black of space turned white with flame. Earth's armada launched every ship, every drone, every satellite cannon. Deathworlders struck like a storm-fast, brutal, coordinated. The reckoning fleets were ancient, but they were slow, designed for fear, not fury. And Earth was fury made flesh, in the Terran capital of New Geneva. Civilians watched from underground bunkers. Screens showed fire dancing across the stars. Children held on to parents. Old warriors wept silently, not from fear, but from pride. They had seen Earth fall before and rise again, but never like this now. Earth wasn't just surviving. Earth was. Leading on Velmara 4, Siren forces received the call. Lura stood in a black-plated cruiser, her hands gripping the controls of the first Siren warfleet in centuries. Earth cut through the comms. Earth didn't leave us behind. We won't leave them now. Deathworlders stood for us. Now we stand with them. The Siren fleet jumped into the stars, flame symbols painted beside their own. Allies, for the first time in history. True allies. The reckoning forces pressed. Hard, they launched antimatter waves, psionic death swarms, dark matter bombs. Entire moons vanished. But Earth didn't break, in fact. Deathworlders got louder, more aggressive, more united. Each loss only fed the fire at the center of the battle. Black Valor took a direct hit from a supermassive singularity torpedo. Hull buckled, decks exploded. Fires tore through 2 wings. But Riker didn't leave the bridge. Mira's voice screamed over the system, "We're burning, Cale." And Riker just said, "Then let's burn brighter." Inside the command core, Earth's last weapon activated. Protocol, final flame, not a bomb. Not a missile, a pulse. A galaxy-wide burst of human code truth. Memory, pain, art. Resistance broadcast to every system, every ship, every mind. It was the story of Earth, a story of fire that never died. A warning, a promise. You tried to silence us. You tried to erase us. But we are written in flame. All across the battlefront, something changed. Some reckoning ships stopped. Some drones turned away. Their programming cracked under the weight of Earth's signal. Old empires remembered their own broken past. Machines saw the humans not as threats but as reflections. Survivors, fighters, flames that refused to go out. And one by one, the reckoning began to fall apart. Hours passed, then silence. The last enemy fleet powered down, the stars turned, and Earth was still there, damaged, scarred, burning, but standing victorious in the ashes of war. Riker stood with Mira on the deck of Black Valor, now orbiting a dead reckoning fortress. She asked, "Is it over?" He answered, "No, it never is. But they know now." She nodded. "They know Earth doesn't run." Riker looked out at the stars. "They know Earth's answers." Back on Velmara, Lura walked through a new garden planted where the hive once stood. Young Siren children played nearby, holding wooden ships carved in the shapes of human warcraft. She smiled. Not because it was peaceful, but because they were ready. The galaxy had changed. There would be more threats, more wars. There was always a voice to answer the call. Not the biggest, not the oldest, but the most dangerous. most human, and that is how Earth became legend, not because it conquered, not because it ruled, but because when the galaxy cried for help, Deathworlders answered, with fire, and never left a monster standing.